Hello everybody, how are you? David DeFranco here from daviddefranco.com with a long-awaited review of this thing right behind me, the AOC Q2963PM 21x9 super wide 29-inch monitor. Alright, so this was a very interesting product to use for the past week or two. So I have a lot to say, so let's just jump right into it. So as you know, I usually like to break my reviews down into pros and cons, and I'm going to do just that, starting out with the pros. Now, it's no secret, this monitor is super wide, and I gotta say, it does have an impressive aspect ratio of 21x9 and a decent resolution of 2560 by 1080. And yes, I did just say a decent resolution, and I'm sure there's someone out there saying right now, but David, that's an amazing resolution. But for someone like myself who's coming from dual 2560 by 1440 monitors, this resolution is just that. It's decent. Now, the Q2963PM does have connections for everything you need, including DisplayPort, HDMI, dual link DVI, and VGA. And don't forget, DisplayPort is geometrically the same as Thunderbolt. So in other words, if you do have Thunderbolt ports on your computer like I do on my late 2013 Mac Pro, DisplayPort monitors such as this AOC will work just fine. Now, this AOC monitor, while the resolution didn't blow me away, I gotta say the image quality is definitely very impressive. But that's only after I applied a major fix specific to OS X users only. I'm not sure why. I think this is a major bug that Apple needs to look into. I'm not going to explain this in details, but just check out the link right below. If you're a fellow Mac user and you're thinking of using this monitor, please, I urge you, use that link to solve a major issue. Because right out of the box, I was not impressed whatsoever with this monitor. But that's only because of this bug. But as soon as I fixed that bug using the link right below, the monitor looked great. Now, the Q2963PM does have dual 3-watt speakers, but let's be honest, you're probably not going to be using them. I mean, if anything, they're backup speakers in case for whatever reason your primary speakers are not working, but still, it's pretty cool of AOC to include them. This monitor does have a fast response time of 5 ms, so that means your games will look great. And speaking of looking great, my last pro I want to talk about in regards to this AOC monitor is it's a new and interesting experience. Now, allow me to explain exactly what I mean. For years now, I've been used to using monitors with the aspect ratio of 16:9, as well as 16:10, which is what my 23-inch Apple Cinema display uses, which is currently in my bedroom. So yeah, I mean, 16:9 has been great. It treats me well. It's what we watch most movies in. Most games support it, and it just works well for everyone, right? Of course, because it's what we're used to. So when you bring something new like 21:9 into the mix, obviously there's going to be a few drawbacks along the way, of which I'll talk about in a minute or two. But I gotta say, 21:9 is an interesting and new experience, and using apps like Final Cut Pro 10 definitely felt natural. Having a super wide timeline, while it didn't really help my workflow, it did feel cool and unique. And if you can find some, 21:9 videos on YouTube actually look really cool. This applies to movies, movie trailers, and even gaming. So yes, if you're a big gamer like I am, I mean, I primarily play most of my games on my consoles, but if you do own a PC or Mac with a 21:9 aspect ratio monitor, then believe me when I say, guys, you will definitely want to play some games in this aspect ratio. Because honestly, from the videos I found on YouTube, it looks downright awesome. There's just something really, really cool about playing games in a super wide aspect ratio, and well, in my opinion, it just makes the immersion that much more impressive. And finally, tying into this interesting experience of using a super wide monitor, I gotta say, it saves a lot of space. I mean, it really does. This is essentially sort of like two monitors in one. I mean, honestly, it doesn't really apply to me, again, coming from dual 27-inch displays. But if you're coming from something like dual 20-inch displays to a single 29-inch super wide monitor, otherwise known as ultra wide, then yes, this could be the monitor for you. And as you can see right behind me, you save a lot of space, and that's something I really appreciated about this monitor. Okay, so those are my list of pros. But let's get into the more controversial part of this video, because I'm sure I'm going to have a lot of people who disagree with me on this. But you got to keep in mind, coming from dual 27-inch displays with each resolution of 2560 by 1440, going to a monitor like this, with a resolution of 2560 by 1080 and an aspect ratio of 21 by 9, it's a huge, huge downgrade, especially from a productivity standpoint. So the first con I want to mention is just that, a huge loss in real estate. I mean, I cannot express enough how frustrated I was using this monitor for about a week or two. I was just so used to having emails on my left monitor, Chrome on my left monitor, my Twitter feed on my left monitor, especially when I'm coding websites and designing websites. I like having my live preview on the left and my coding portion or whatever on my primary monitor right in front of me. So going from dual displays to a single display, it was kind of torture. And yeah, I know torture is kind of like a dramatic term, but it's just how I felt. And for being an IPS display, I gotta say the viewing angle was pretty disappointing. And also, not to mention, there's no height adjustment stand. I don't know why AOC wouldn't include something like this, but hey, it's not included, and I definitely found that pretty frustrating. Now, obviously, I got used to it over time. It wasn't a deal breaker. But again, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to focus my ASUS monitors too much, but those monitors each have height adjustments. So coming from an experience like that to an experience like this, it's just very disappointing, and I'm not sure why AOC would ignore such a basic feature. Now, this next con does not apply to everyone, but I definitely found it, again, pretty frustrating, and that's the lack of 21 by 9 content. Now, obviously, AOC has no control over this whatsoever. This is just standards and something that will change over time. Think coming from 1080p content to 4K content. 4K TVs and 4K displays may be downright beautiful, but you're not going to get your money's worth out of that 4K TV without 4K content, right? And well, the same exact thing applies to 21 by 9 monitors. It may be an impressive aspect ratio, but when 99% of videos on YouTube are in the standard 16 by 9 aspect ratio, you have to wonder, is using a monitor like this really worth it? Especially if you get annoyed by those black bars? In my opinion, no, I still prefer the 16 by 9 aspect ratio. But hey, that's just me. But I will say, as I mentioned in the pros portion of this video, if you can find 21 by 9 content, then you will be impressed. I promise you that. So I will wrap up this video by giving my final verdict. Is this display worth it? Yes and no. I say yes if you're coming from something like dual 20-inch displays, then perhaps you'll appreciate something like this more than I have. But if you're like me and you're using dual 27-inch displays or even something like dual 24-inch displays, stay away from this, especially if you're annoyed by the lack of 21 by 9 content. And guys, I gotta be honest, this monitor is nearly $400. For just $100 more, you can get a monitor of better quality with more features and a stunning resolution of 2560 by 1440. So you gotta ask yourself, is this really worth it? In my opinion, no. And guys, I gotta be honest, as soon as this review's done, I'm ripping this monitor down, putting it back in the box, because it is a review unit, so it's not mine to keep anyway. And then I'll be throwing back up my 27-inch displays, and I cannot wait. These past 2 weeks or so have been torture. Again, it's not a bad display, but it just feels so squished. I need those extra vertical pixels in terms of screen real estate and those dual displays. And if I say dual displays one more time, I'm sure I'm going to drive someone crazy, including myself. So guys, there you have it. There is my review of the AOC Q2963PM 21 by 9 super wide 29-inch monitor. It's not a bad monitor, but it's not an amazing monitor. It's a new and unique kind of experience that applies to only a specific amount of individuals. Now, with that said, if you are interested in buying this monitor for yourself, the link to Amazon is right below. So guys, I hope you enjoyed my review. As always, thank you so much for your continued support. It really does mean a lot to me, and I will see you in my next video. Peace.